The Middle East is entering one of its most volatile and uncertain moments in years. As a fragile Pakistani-mediated ceasefire pauses the war in Iran, the fallout is already spreading far beyond the battlefield, shaking energy markets, rattling global supply chains, and deepening fears of recession across the global south. In Washington, President Donald Trump says a peace agreement with Iran could be better than a military victory, while discussions continue over a draft deal that would reopen the Strait of Hormuz. But on the ground, the gap between the rhetoric and reality remains wide. In Lebanon, despite talk of a truce, bombardments and military operations continue, raising serious questions about the credibility of Western diplomacy and the meaning of international law. From the heavily militarized waters of the Gulf to the diplomatic corridors of Beijing, where the recent Trump-Xi summit underscored shifting global alignments, the United States is facing mounting resistance to its long-standing dominance. As Washington tries to contain crises on multiple fronts, the global south is left to absorb the economic and political costs. This situation and more is analyzed in tonight's All 24 News special with our panel shortly. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special edition of our news coverage with me, Karim Zachary. And before we bring in our guest, here is a look at the latest developments on the ground, and then we get back to the discussion.
An already fragile ceasefire in the Middle East is being tested once again. Iran struck U.S. bases in Kuwait and Bahrain in retaliation to American attacks on Iranian coastal radar sites, while Washington claims its actions were prompted by the launch of 4 Iranian drones toward the Strait of Hormuz. The latest exchange underscores the escalating tit-for-tat confrontation between the two sides, raising fears that a region already simmering with tension could slide into all-out war. U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran is refusing a ceasefire agreement and is facing difficulties in finalizing negotiations, while Iran has announced what it called a blatant violation of the ceasefire, adding that this shows Washington had no intention of reducing tensions. Trump told NBC News Meet the Press program that resolving the dispute with Iran would take years, indicating that Iran has no alternative and would eventually be forced to accept the agreement. He also claimed that Iran now has only 21 to 22% of its missile stockpile left. Those remarks, however, appear to contrast with comments he made at a campaign in Wisconsin, where he vowed to bring the conflict to a swift end as pressure mounts ahead of the midterm elections.
I hope you people are really spiritized, because we're at a point we're going to come out of Iran very quickly, and it's going to be very strong, one way or the other, whether it's a piece of paper or the very tough way, okay? The very tough way is maybe the easier way, but we're going to come out and your fertilizer prices are going to go way down, just like they were 4 months ago. Your fertilizer's down, your energy's down, your oil, your gas is all coming way down.
Iran, on the other hand, wants that the U.S. would enter into a dark corridor if it resumed attacks. That's what Mohsen Rizai, an advisor to Iran's supreme leader, said in a CNN interview on Friday, adding that a peace deal hinged on the Trump administration and freezing $24 billion in Iranian assets. For Tehran, a peace deal must involve its access to billions of dollars in oil revenue, waivers on sanctions on crude exports, the lifting of a U.S. blockade on its ports, and leverage over the Strait of Hormuz, with issues including its nuclear program left to further talks. Iran has also made a ceasefire in Lebanon a condition for any agreement with Washington. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, during an interview with the Lebanese broadcaster Al Mayadeen on Wednesday, said Tehran's contacts with Washington have not been cut off, but no progress has been made in the negotiations, adding both sides were studying the texts that were exchanged.
Our communications and contact have not been interrupted, but in recent days, no particular progress have been made regarding issues related to the negotiations. Nevertheless, both sides continue to work on the existing texts.
As the world watches events unfold in the Middle East and official statements dominate the headlines, many on the streets of Tehran are expressing hope that diplomacy will eventually prevail.
To help us unpack these developments, I am joined tonight by 2 distinguished guests. From Kuwait City, we are joined by Dr. Alia Sayer, political analyst and researcher at the Community College of Qatar, Hello there, sir, and thank you for agreeing to be with us.
Hello, Kareem. Thank you very much for having me.
It's our pleasure. And we're also delighted to welcome from London Dr. Irfan Raja, geopolitical analyst and media professional. Welcome to the program, Dr. Raja.
Thank you so much, Kareem. Once again, pleasure to be with you.
All right, let me begin with you, Dr. Raja. President Donald Trump says a peace deal with Iran would be better than a military victory. Is this a real diplomatic turn or simply Washington acknowledging that force alone is no longer enough to impose its will? How do you see it?
Well, first of all, it's a wishful thinking for millions of people across the globe who want peace and are praying to avoid war, and that includes people in America and Israel. I'm talking about ordinary people. So I wish that President Trump would be true this time, because for years he has been saying things on record, outrageous, contradictory, and untrue things. But later the fact checkers have found thousands of falsehood he has asserted about many issues, including Gaza, including Central America, Greenland, Canada. He says things in the morning and then he changes his stance. So in that, it's difficult to say anything about whether his desire for a peace is genuine or it's just a strategical point or a strategy to continue the war, because so far it seems to me the Americans and Israelis, they are using peace talks as a weapon of war. I have written on it, and my personal analysis is that yes, they are, because we all know that for America, war is a business, like a few other nations, and it's over $1 trillion military industrial complex. They need war. And as you see, there are piles of evidence. There are world-leading scholars, researchers, media experts. They have made films about it, documentaries. So we have enough evidence to say that peace at this point seems really difficult. And as you have seen, just as we talk, the Lebanon is under attack. Once the Paris of Middle East or the Switzerland of Middle East, and there was no Islamist there, and it's been turned into a parking lot, a carpet bombing, deliberate, displacement of civilians, killing of Christians, and bombing of Christian churches, on which you can see even the top political elite in Europe and America, they are always silent. So this is very important to see. We have to wait and see, because during these last nearly 4 months now, and the rounds of peace talks in Oman and Pakistan, the Americans have said one thing in the morning, and they changed their stance under President Trump's administration in the evening. And most importantly, it is still non-serious because of the ongoing attempts to sabotage peace efforts, killing of top Iranian peace negotiators, top military and political elite, and deliberately attack on Lebanon, which is part of the deal actually. So it does shows that the American side is heavily under influenced by the Israeli lobby. At the top American professors, John Mearsheimer, so many, they have said it. So in briefly, it is too early to say something about President Trump's genuine, wish for peace or war. And in summing up, they are already lost the war. So when they say that it's better than a military victory, actually there is no military victory here because the top American defense and political analyst, and I'm talking about Scott Ritter, Robert Pape, Douglas McGregor, so many, they have, once they have fought the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they are saying out and loud in public that America has lost this war.
Mm-hmm. Amazing, Dr. Irfan Raja. Let me now turn to Dr. Asaya. Dr. Asaya, we see Pakistani mediation trying to keep the ceasefire alive despite the fluctuation. And just like Dr. Irfan Raja said, we're hearing one statement from Donald Trump on 1 hour, the other hour something changes, something comes up. So after the recent exchanges involving regional bases and shipping lanes, how much leverage do you think Iran has or actually has gained in this confrontation?
Well, if I'll be honest with you, I don't think that Iran really got more leverage through the recent confrontations. Iran has already had the leverage through their control over the Strait of Hormuz, which the United States, Donald Trump specifically, has been really scrambling a lot to try to find a way to wrest control from Iran, from Iran, the Strait of Hormuz. That is what happened in the recent strikes between the United States, Iran, obviously, then attacking the warship within the Gulf of Oman, also attacking U.S. military bases, also attacking Kuwait International Airport, a flagrant violation of international law, by the way, which led to a civilian death and dozens of civilians injured. What the United States is trying to do, and I will agree with Dr. Irfan here, is that they are not really serious about peace. They are using this moment in time, this ceasefire, to go forward with a double-pronged approach. One approach is that they continue these strikes in a way that is not severe enough, where it results in the return to all-out war, but at the same time concise enough to hit those strategic targets in Iran next to the Strait of Hormuz to weaken Iran's hold over the strait. And what this does is, on the one hand, it makes Iran weaker, and it changes. It is in with hopes of changing Iran's ability to have leverage within the ongoing negotiations. It wants, the United States wants Iran to feel less confident and more vulnerable within the context of the ongoing negotiations, and agree to concessions that it otherwise wouldn't agree on, because it knows, the United States, Trump knows, that Iran will not agree to the points put forward by Donald Trump, because anything that Donald Trump has put forward thus far is nothing more than a loss for Iran. And on the other hand, we can understand these recent tit-for-tat attacks from the U.S. and the Iranian side, as the U.S. trying, again, to weaken Iran's hold over the Strait of Hormuz in order to prepare for a restart of the war, which I don't think will happen anytime soon, possibly not even in this summer, maybe after the midterms, after Donald Trump has made sure that the Republicans don't lose too many seats. So he wants to basically stabilize his position of power before he restarts a full-blown war. That is in terms of how the United States is approaching it. Iran, on the other hand, when they are attacking places like Kuwait International Airport, the U.S. bases in Kuwait and in Bahrain, it's sending out a signal to the United States that they know what the strategy of the United States is, and they are willing to escalate further on top of the U.S. escalation in order to deter the U.S. from continuing this policy of engaging in these moderate but concise attacks within this ongoing ceasefire.
Amazing. Moderate and concise attacks during the talks. And here I would like to include Mr. Mohammed Chris Sassi, who joins us now live from New York. Mr. Mohammed Chris Sassi is a geopolitical observer and a financial analyst. Mr. Mohammed Chris Sassi, thank you for agreeing to be with us.
Always a pleasure to be with you.
And as you were listening to Dr. Assayer, he says that this technique or this strategy is aiming for weakening Iran. How effective do you read this, Mr. Mohammed Krisasi? Do you think that the United States is successfully, trying to negotiate or pretending to seek a diplomatic, solution to this crisis, but at the same time, it is, attacking, some strategic sites in Iran so as to weaken it and, make it vulnerable and at a weaker position, during these negotiations?
Well, you call that negotiation. I don't know if I can put it, if I may put it in another way. When you negotiate with someone, you have to have the trust of the people. Or here, twice before, Mr. Trump was negotiating, and before the hand of whatever he was promising, he was attacking Iran. And he did it not only once, he did twice. Now he's saying that you have a ceasefire. I was watching when I was driving here. I was listening about, this negotiation, so powerful he is and so beautiful he is that Iran now doesn't have anything and they will come ramping to tell him, yes, we are safe. No, absolutely not. America is losing on two fronts. Number one, on the military side. Yes, they have the greatest army in the world, but they didn't attack Iran yet, and they cannot put the boots on the ground because America is sick and tired, and the element fatigue is here. Number two, you're saying that they are attacking UAE and Bahrain and Kuwait. Well, you accept to host an army that want to destruct me. Of course, I'm going to defend myself. What Trump didn't and I'm not going to be diplomatic here. What Trump didn't understand that, he was manipulated because again and again, I want to reiterate, to talk about USA-Iran war. No, it's Israel-USA war. The thing is, Israel now did understanding, and now they let Trump do it everything by themselves. For 1 month, we didn't hear anything about Israel regarding Iran. But Trump, he's in a big mess because now in America, they begin to understand that, they are doing a war by proxy. But to come back to the point of the strategy is no strategy. Iran have a strategy. Iran is resilient. Iran is defending himself. Iran showed them that they are not Venezuela. Iran showed them that they are not, Cuba. And again, they have 40 years of preparation. They knew that they are going to be attacked because of Netanyahu. Now, the strategy that they are using is a disaster. What they are trying to do is to face saving. And you have now China that is in the middle. And China is not only what you hear on the TV. China said openly to Trump, you cannot continue to have this chaotic destruction of the trade war because it's not the Detroit of Hormuz, it's all over Asia. We have to feed our machine economically and we need this region, the oil, of course, he was saying. And economically, America cannot sustain this war and China will not accept to go as much as Trump is doing to do the blocus, etc., etc. Now the GCC country, I'm sorry to say, they did with their own hand. They were thinking that you're going to be the paradise, the friend of America. America is going to protect them. Then America let them down. He went to Israel, and now what he's trying to do, he's trying to make accord without them. They are bombarded. They are the drone day and night since 1 week. He's not doing anything. What did he do? Nothing to protect them. And this is why I say to answer simply your strategy, I'm not diplomatic on this side, because Trump did the war of choice. He was thinking that he was going to go for a walk in the park and to take the plutonium, the 300 or 400 kilo plutonium, like a Uber coming to take them and bring it to America. Unfortunately, Iran is not that easy. Iran is 95 million people. Iran is a power. Iran is a civilization of 5,000 years. And then you cannot again and again distance Iran from Hezbollah in Lebanon. Mm-hmm. It was part of the first deal. Lebanon, the massacre that is taking place. We
will
right now.
talk about Lebanon later, Mr. Mohammed Krisasi. Thank you for bringing that up. But we will get back to the file of Lebanon a bit later. And now I would like to get back to Dr. Raja. Dr. Raja, you mentioned earlier the crisis of American credibility yourself, and you spoke about the divide that the United States is witnessing witnessing, not just at the political elite, but also at the public opinion level. Let's talk a little bit about Washington, which is seen less as a broker of peace, as Mr. Mohammed Krisasi was saying, and more as a party protecting its own strategic and Israeli interest. How would you analyze this further?
I agree with both of you. And the thing is, we have a history of American deceit, the war on deception, starting from the recent wars in the Middle East, starting from the weapons of mass destruction, and elsewhere. It has a long history of deception and falsehood based on propaganda. So very recently, I would like to mention three leading American scholars and their books. Number one is the Bob Woodward. His book, War, is a textbook example of the American deception of war and, it's illegal wars abroad, particularly in the Middle East. And especially he brought, evidence of how the Pentagon and the American military elite, together with the industrial complex, they all in party in a business. But as I earlier pointed out, war is business, and Bob Woodward revealed how behind the scenes the peace process in the Middle East and elsewhere were sabotaged by people who doesn't want peace because they are into weapon business. And then there's more recently, you can take example of Ronan Farrow, who revealed similar patterns such as tactics to sabotage peace process. And Farrow provided piles of evidence of how Trump's administration, they hired Israeli spies and agents to run dirty campaigns against their own fellow Americans in the administration who were facilitating peace. And the last example is the New York reporter Adam Antos. He revealed in his, a examination based on 300 interviews, which was published in the New York Times. And he came up with how the intelligence people, they support Ukraine behind the scenes of peace talks. So there was peace talks up front, but behind the scenes, actually, there were people, they were, not interested in peace. So a very similar pattern is unfortunately unfolding day after day in front of us, and that is Iran. Because we all know, and Professor Muhammad and all both of your guests, I agree initially what they said. We all know that project, the Greater Israel Project, is not an illusion. It is a reality. And if you, listen to the leading Israeli politicians, retired generals, including those in America, their sponsors and the Israeli lobby, look into Fox News. I was watching a program before coming onto your show, and there's a 4-star General Kane. He is a supporter of war, and the American media with headlines that finish the job. Well, if the American side is serious, I'm not talking about.
Well, it seems that the net is cut. Let me get back to you later, Dr. Raja, since we're experiencing this internet problem. Now, let me, meanwhile, redirect another question to Dr. Isaiah. Dr. Isaiah, amidst what's happening, let's talk about energy security and the global south in general. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the world's most sensitive energy choke points. Now, maybe if we come to analyze, a lot of analysts and observers would say that there are those who are immediately hit by the consequences of this war. And here we talk about the Gulf countries. And also we can raise questions about how much are the global South economies exposed to any disruption there, and who is really paying the real price of this war, Dr. Sayed?
That's a very good question. But if you would allow me to respond to something that Mr. Mohammed talked about when he was, referring to Iran attacking U.S. bases. Is Iran really only attacking U.S. bases? Is there really any conclusive evidence that any attacks came out of the U.S. base in Kuwait towards Iran, especially Qishm? There is no evidence for this. In terms of technicalities as well, when we look at the weaponry that the U.S. has in those bases, it can't reach Qishm. The type of machinery that they have there only reaches 300 kilometers. Kuwait is 826 kilometers away from Qishm, and Iran said that Kuwait is directly responsible for the attacks on Qishm, which is why they attacked Kuwait. But let us not forget as well that they have in the past attacked Kuwait airport not once, but twice, 3 times. They have attacked water desalination plants. They have attacked electricity plants. These are all terroristic acts and also war crimes under international law.
God.
When I didn't excuse me, that language is not acceptable, number one. And number two, I did not disturb you or interrupt you when you were talking. So let me finish my point. And when we talk about respecting ceasefires, Iran sent 4 IRGC commandos to try to enter Bobyan Island during the ceasefire for an espionage mission. I don't know if that means that they're respecting the ceasefire. Yes, we can talk about how Israel and the United States are at the heart of this conflict. They are the reason why we are here today. They have engaged in absolutely condemnable acts, and we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Israel whispering ill-advised information into Trump's ear. But Iran is also not acting according to international law. It is not putting into consideration the safety of civilians in Kuwait, and it is certainly not acting proportionally and indeed in a cordial manner towards Kuwait. That is in terms of my response to Mr. Mohammed. In terms of the Global South, as widely defined, is something that is a place and a range of countries that are deeply affected by the ongoing closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 40% of their oil they receive from the Arabian Gulf region. 25 to 40% of their gas comes from the Arabian Gulf region, and also 20 to 35% of their fertilizers. So without a shadow of a doubt, these are the countries that are affected a lot, and arguably even more than Europe and the United States. Mm-hmm. And in terms of who is paying the truest or the greatest toll in this war, the civilians. It is the civilians in places like the Gulf, Lebanon, Gaza, the civilians even in Iran. They are the ones that are dealing with the brunt of the aggression. When we look at Israel and what they're doing in Lebanon, carpet bombing and even removing villages from maps, displacing over 1 million Lebanese people. That is something that is unacceptable. When it comes to also civilians in the areas around the world, especially in the Global South, that are suffering from energy crises. These are the truest, and I think the people and the category that is most affected by the ongoing closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And that is something that has to be kept in mind, of course.
Amazing, Dr. Isaiah. Now, let me get back to Mr. Mohammed Krissasi. Mr. Mohammed Krissasi, I know that perhaps you do not agree with the language that Dr. Isaiah just used, but then let's just put this into perspective. When it comes to a war, there are always two parties that might trespass or go beyond the red lines. And here, acts that actually elevate to the level of war crimes can be committed by any party in such a war. And here, Mr. Mohammed Krissasi, Dr. Isaiah was saying that there is no concrete evidence that Iran was just targeting the bases, the US bases, but it also had civilian infrastructure that could amount to a war crime. And of course, Iran is in the position of defending itself when it comes to the aggression by Israel and USA, hitting, the Gulf countries that contain US bases would be considered a legitimate target. But then what would you say to the fact that Dr. Isaiah referred to, that they are also hitting civilian infrastructure?
First of all, I would like to apologize to the brother because I should not use that language. It's just, number one, to be honest with you, I was thinking I was put it on mute, but I was so shocked by what he was saying. And again, I apologize, I should not use that language. But this being said, we cannot, dear doctor, hide the fact that Kuwait is hosting the military base. And the trajectory of the missile going to Iran was proof that it come from here. Not only that, when you say that Iran aggress and is a terrorist attack, it's not a terrorist attack. I would like you to remember, after 1979, Iran was attacked by Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, even Jordani and Egypt. It was the war with the manipulation of Iraq, and it was for 7 years. And I don't know if you remember that, but I would like you to look back to history a little bit about what's going on. Now, regarding what you said about the attack and the civilian attack, here we have Iran that have about 4,000 or 5,000 people at the number, official number, I mean, it can be more, but that were killed. Children, women, it was building, civil building, schools. The first bombardment, I would like you to remember, 140 little girls going to school, the bomb coming from the region that Kuwait is in it. So let's not try here to hide the truth. Iran was aggressed by America, by Israel, from the military base housed in Kuwait, United Arab and Bahrain. Now, yes, you said, and unfortunately, you said that they were attacking the desalination water, knowing that Kuwait, for example, 90% of the water comes from that desalination station. But in Iraq, they destruct all the industrial facilities. They bombard them for 1 month, day and night. In Kuwait, as far as I'm concerned, and my reading, I don't see that it was more than 100 people were killed. Yes, psychologically, maybe it was some problem. And again, it's war. We are not here playing chess. Oh, yes, maybe you can even say that you are impressed, but not in that kind of war. So please, let's be honest. Let's be factual and don't try to hide the truth. Kuwait is part of it. He is accomplice of the United States of America, and Kuwait was let down by America because they didn't fund them. You spend billion of dollars nourishing the armament machine and industry of America. For what? To come and kill the people in the Middle East? Don't forget Iraq. Don't forget Yemen. Don't forget Syria. Why we don't talk about that? Why? You are going to talk about Lebanon later on. I would like to say a few words about that. But again and again, I go back to my point. Iran was aggressed, and Kuwait was part of it. You like it or not?
Amazing, Mr. Mohammed Chris Sassi. So apart from this point, of course, it's a war, and we have two parties. Each one is given a certain narrative that from their perspective or from their angle. And here, Dr. Raja, let's speak about the stability, especially when it comes to Western capitals. How are the, or how are...
If I may respond to Mr. Mohammed.
Yes, I will give you the
accusations.
chance to respond a little bit later. Just for fair redistribution of time, Dr. Sayegh, I would like to get back to Dr. Raja. Dr. Raja, if we come to speak about the effects that are being felt worldwide, especially in Asia, in Africa, and Latin America through higher energy costs and inflation, does this expose the double standards of the so-called rules-based order?
Yes, thank you so much once again. Very important question. I would say yes, and not only in Asia and Latin America and beyond, but also inside the Western capitals. I would like to recall a great British philosopher, writer, George Orwell, and I would buy his phrase, which is doublespeak. That is visible evidently in all forms of Western, like in media, in political sphere, everywhere. And that is, you have good guys versus bad guys. That is deeply rooted in Orientalism by Edward Said, who himself was a Middle Eastern scholar, settled in America, born there. The thing is, you have constantly portraying one set of people, and I include Middle East, including Iran and all the GCC countries. You have the ill portrayal of Arabs in the Hollywood films. So the point is, the protesters, if they are protesting against the war, and I agree with guests on this, that the civilians, they are the prime victims, whether in Asia, Middle East, or inside Europe as well, because they are the one who are paying the price, I would say heavy price, of the crimes of elites. War is a crime and war is a business. War is bad elsewhere. And we are not talking about Muslims, or we are not talking about the effectees, whether they are in Kuwait or Iran. Let's talk about beyond this. Let's talk about I as a human being, I see how many Christians have been killed in Lebanon, how many churches being deliberately bombed and demolished, and how many times the clergy and Orthodox, they have been spit on, they have been not recognized. So all these are double standards. The point is, in brief, when the West is fighting a war of his own, somewhere abroad. For example, it was fighting against Russia, and they were using Taliban. The Taliban then were very good guys. We were in early years of our university, and then I remember how we were being, through curriculum and through a very sophisticated, skillfully designed, propaganda, we were being told they're very nice guys. But as soon after the Americans won the war and the breakup of USSR, suddenly they become bad guys. So your point is very valid. The rule-based order is almost dead. So that's why there's there are more voices from global South recently in the BRICS, and what happened in the Trump and President Xi talks in China. His recent visit was failed because the Chinese are no longer accepting this, nor the Russians, nor other nations, these double standards of the Western, including inside the West. There are leading scholars and voices. They all coming together. Like you have one set of standard for the protesters who are there to protest against the war in Gaza, against the ongoing genocide. They are the bad guys, while the protesters in Iran are the good guys because they are whatever figures they are. they are against the regime. Well, whatever Iranians want, that's a sovereign nation. It is them to decide who is good and who is bad. So going back to this, just recently, UK, which is my home, second home, and there are many people love to live there and enjoy the freedoms. But unfortunately, the moment anyone speaks anything about Israel, it's been labeled as anti-Semite. And you have examples, scores of examples. Just a few days ago, you have the two left-wing American political commentators. They are barred from entering into UK. Not that they were saying against anything about UK, but actually they have said something which was already been endorsed by the Jewish professors and world-leading commentators who are Jewish and Christians about the genocide. So this is how it is happening at the moment, which is very unfortunate.
Yes, unfortunate double standards, Dr. Asayer. Of course, the situation is very complex. If you come to see what's happening in the war in Ukraine, what happened before the genocide in Gaza, which is still ongoing, the aggression in Lebanon, all show that there are different narratives that come from Western media. And as Dr. Raja rightfully said, if you speak against Israel, you will immediately be called anti-Semitic, especially in the West. And here we have a complex war between not just two parties, but three parties. Here you have USA and Israel against Iran, and they have had a lot of pretexts to hit Iran. One of them was to change the regime. One of them was that they are developing a nuclear weapon and they constitute, an existential threat to Israel. Israel that is trying to expand and, create the greater Israel objective, which is no longer an illusion. It's there. And we had, Benjamin Netanyahu up front in the United Nations holding a map that takes a lot of chunks from many countries: Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Iraq, Syria. Dr. Asayer, of course, in a war, everything is justified sometimes, especially when we see the double standards, the rules-based order that is eroding. Now, how would you see it in response, of course, to what Mr. Mohammed Krisasi was saying earlier?
So in terms of what you were mentioning just now, I think it's absolutely fallacious to even think that this war is actually about Iran having a nuclear weapon. It has been clear from IAEA inspections that Iran was not moving towards a nuclear weapon. If anything, they started enriching uranium because Donald Trump decided to rip up the nuclear deal, which ended up turning the region into an unstable mess, if I'm going to be honest with you. And what I think is the crux or the fundamental point behind why this war started and why the U.S. decided to go forward with it is the Israeli interest. Israel, if they want to achieve the Greater Israel project, need to expand in a region that is unstable. It cannot expand and create the Greater Israel project if the region is stable, if the region is strong, if one of the biggest countries that can retaliate against Israel is still on its feet. So clearly, this is a war that serves Israel's interest more than any other country in the world. I think even Donald Trump wants to find a way out of this, but he can't, because now this war has become a world of its own in terms of the escalation ladder, in terms of its complexity, in terms of the narrative war as well. In response, and also obviously, when you talk about civilian lives, the civilian lives of the global South to Western media outlets has always been less important than the life of the white person. And that is as a result of Orientalism, it is as a result of colonialism, it is as a result of giving the benefit of the doubt through the usage of this imperialist, moralistic language to the West whenever they engage in war and violent missions within this region. In response to some of the points that Mr. Mohammed was talking about, first of all, if we're going to refer to 1979, Kuwait did not launch any attacks against Iran. And when that war started, which many people in the Gulf were against, it started after Khomeini, through a radio call, called upon people in the Gulf to overthrow the monarchies. I don't think that is a start of a good relationship. I'm not saying that this should have resulted in an 8-year war, but Iran was not just simply, the peaceful dove in this particular equation. And when we're talking about Iranian civilians that were killed, absolutely, this is absolutely it's condemnable. It is unacceptable. It should not have happened. But that does not justify targeting civilians in Gulf countries. In terms of the evidence that you used about missiles coming from Kuwait in the direction of Kuwait, if we're going to talk about the recent attacks on Qishm, just from a technical perspective, the only weaponry that can launch missiles from Kuwait that the US has is the HIMARS, and the HIMARS only goes 300 kilometers, and obviously Kuwait and Qishm, there's a distance of 800 plus kilometers. So that also is an argument that doesn't hold. Kuwait has always promoted good relations with Iran, even during times when relations were not good between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And to say that Kuwait is part of this mission to attack Iran is counterintuitive in terms of a basic understanding of how foreign policy works in a country such as Kuwait. Kuwait is not big enough to be a bully in the region, and it benefits a lot from soft power. It benefits a lot from being a mediator. It benefits a lot from having cordial relations, especially with its larger and bigger neighbors. So that is the final point I'd like to put forward. And actually, one last thing. Iran has had 3 sleeper cells in Kuwait. Iran has sent IRGC commandos to enter Kuwait illegally during the ceasefire. It has given drones to Iraqi militias that constantly violate Iraqi sovereignty to attack Kuwait. Iran might be defending itself, but I don't think that they are necessarily
a quick question,
not
Dr.
engaging
Essayah.
in Machiavellian politics.
Point clear, Dr. Essayah. But a quick question, I would like to answer this briefly. Do you think it's in the best interest of, the Gulf countries to have a weak Iran?
No, definitely not. I think, and even the Gulf knows this. The Gulf, I think, most of the Gulf countries are pushing towards having an Iran under one rule. And this is something that a lot of analysts from the Gulf, such as Professor Faisal Al-Salayt, that have talked about, which is that if Iran remains stable and there is a ruling system there that is not constantly under existential threat, that is going to end up as a net positive for the Gulf in terms of peace, stability, and also making sure that this region can become a hub of economic prosperity, of stability, a region where cultural interaction can happen and civilian lives are protected. I think more than ever, the Gulf is increasingly skeptical and doubtful of U.S. intentions. And there are a lot of discussions that are happening right now about how we can move forward from here. Without needing to depend on the United States for our own, stability and for peace in the region.
Perfect, Dr. Essayah. Mr. Mohammed Krissasi, as we are closing, we just heard from Dr. Essayah that it's not in the best interest for the Gulf countries to have a weak Iran. And I presume that Iran knows this too. Now, if we come to see the realities unfolding on the ground, Mr. Mohammed Krissasi, why do you think that Iran is attacking these Gulf countries, especially when it comes to civilian infrastructure, to airports, water desalination, etc., as we discussed earlier? Would you think that this is perhaps some kind of a card that Iran is doing to put pressure on those countries that would, on their turn, put pressure in the United States to stop this war or come to a deal?
Well, I would like to say to my dear friend from who was talking before me to go back and read Machiavelli, the Prince, the Discourse to the Prince. Here we are, someone who's a pretending, because disinformation, that the missile based in Kuwait are not going to reach Iran. Number one, the boat that are there, the marine, of America there, they are not sending small drone. They are sending missiles that can go to 1,500 kilometers. But that's a little point. And also, again and again, Kuwait, I remember during the war with the Iraq, yes, they were attacked, and it's unfortunate because for me it should not happen. But when they sent the little girl, Noam, if I remember well, her name, I think it was Nayarah, claiming that she was a refugee and she was in the hospital and she saw baby dying. In fact, she was the daughter of the ambassador of Kuwait in Washington. So that just, to make it clear that also we can play on the narrative. But now about the interest that the gentleman was saying, yes, it's not their interest to have Iran weak, because Iran is the only country that stands to Israel. Kuwait, among the other GCC countries, they bow to them. Some of them, they signed the Treaty of Abraham. So don't just listen and say that they don't want to be strong when they go and sign the peace treaty of Abraham, which is with Israel. And Israel want the destruction of whatever stand in their way. They attack the Arab country like Syria, I repeat that, like Yemen, like Iraq. So I'm not going to listen to the news of certain newspaper and certain narrative and systemic saying, no, when you sign a treaty with Israel, Treaty of Abraham, is because you want the destruction of the Middle East, and you don't have a word officially regarding the genocide of Gaza. The only country who fight for that, my country, and I'm very proud of it, is Algeria, with our ambassador. All the other, they were submission to the servitude of America, buying their arm that they know they're going not to use, buying, false security, they didn't come to them. And now they want the peace, even with Israel, knowing what they are doing, which world they are living in. So Iran have to be strong to their own people, but also to be a deterrent for religion. Why Israel since 1 month is not talking about Iran? Not because Kuwait is doing it, because they know that now Iran is there and they are not going to submit to the servitude like the GCC is doing.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed Krissasi. 3 very quick round of questions, beginning with you, Dr. Raja. If we turn to Lebanon, how can a truce be defended if military pressure continues on the ground, especially what is happening in Iran? Does this not turn ceasefire diplomacy into a form of a capitulation?
Yeah, you are perfectly right here. The thing is, no truce can work in such situation. On one hand, there is constant bombing of civilians, women and children being killed, including Christians, as I pointed out earlier, and this is happening for long. Look, the Paris of Middle East, and often being described as the Switzerland of Middle East, that beautiful country is being turned into ashes. And there is carpet bombing for no reason. There's displacement of civilians. So no party could trust the attacking forces. And as the respected guests and yourself mentioned, the Greater Israel Project, which is not an illusion, we all know that. So they really would like to capture southern Lebanon, and this is a campaign. It's been decided years ago. So there's no point. The resilience, the resistance forces, they know it very well. It's all deception, and there's no serious intention for peace. So although we pray, you and I and our listeners pray as common people for peace, but unfortunately, the one in power corridors, they don't want peace.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Raja. And very briefly, Dr. Sayegh, why has the international community reacted so weakly when civilians in Lebanon face renewed displacement and border escalation? Of course, this can be asked about what happened in Gaza before, during the genocide. Is international law becoming selective? You might have answered that partially in other question, depending on who is involved.
Yeah, let me hammer down on the point. International law has become, and maybe has always been, selective, especially when it comes to the life of those who are on the periphery, the non-white life, the non-Western life. Unfortunately, this is a reality that the Gazans have had to live through the course of this genocide. It is a reality that the Lebanese lived through. And we would have seen absolute outrage on Western media had we seen blocks of settlements exploding through TNT that Hezbollah put. And so there is a double standard. Mm-hmm. The international law does not evoke the same sense of sentiment and compassion within the halls of the great Western powers, like the United States or Germany or the United Kingdom. And part of the reason for this is their ties with Israel through, in the context of the United States, for example, the Zionist lobby. And that is a power that I think reigns true. It is a power that is hegemonic within the decision-making circles in Washington, Germany, and even the United Kingdom.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sayegh. And a very quick question, Mr. Mohammed Chris Sassi, regarding Lebanon. How important is Lebanon and especially Hezbollah in the Iran war equation? But very quickly, please.
Well, it's very difficult for me to be so quick on that kind of super question, so important. Hezbollah, you have to go back to history. Before our dear colleague were talking about the book 1948 of Orwell. We are here now. Hezbollah was a creation of Israel to go against the OLP. Remember 1980, the invasion of Israel. And who threw them in? Hezbollah in 2012. Why? Because the government of Lebanon didn't care about the South Lebanon. Why? Simply because it's a religious question, and I'm sorry to say it. Because they're Muslim and Shiite. But Hezbollah fight. Now, the government of Lebanon go to Washington, sit down with Israel, and they say we are going to have a peace treaty. They were so proud of it. Meanwhile, they are bombarding Beirut. Meanwhile, they are bombarding children and women going to refuge. Meanwhile, nobody keep talking. Don't tell me about international law. There is no international law for the Middle East. Since the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, when the Ottoman Empire was, they take over, they lost the war, I should say. Lebanon was created. It was a creation of France. Why? Just to protect the Christian over there. Lebanon was part of Syria. So now, please, don't talk about, the international law. It never applies. As I said many times, the international law doesn't apply to the country that doesn't want to apply it. We have a country that is esclavagist, colonialist. They destruct India, the British. They destruct Africa, the French. And America, you're part of it. And now you come to me and you say that they are going to make peace.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. It's the end of our special coverage for tonight. That brings us to the end, unfortunately. Many thanks to all our guests, Dr. Alia Sayegh in Kuwait City, and Dr. Irfan Raja in London, and Mr. Mohammed Chris Sassi.
Now, apologize to my dear friend.
No worries, Mr. Mohammed Chris Sassi. Thank you so much. So the Middle East is being reshaped not only by the war and diplomacy, but by a wider struggle over power, energy, and the future of international order. As we conclude this special coverage, I thank you, dear viewers, for watching All 24 News. Stay with us for continuous updates in the coming episodes, and goodbye for now.